Well, hello again, and welcome back to Agent 00 ASMR. And wanted to take a few minutes to talk about the very fact of there may be a new James Bond very soon. So, rumor has it that actor Aaron Taylor Johnson, he was in Bullet Train and Tenet, that he has met with the franchise producer Barbara Broccoli about starring as Bond in Bond 26, and that the talks went very well. So I do know that in the Bond community, it's been talked a lot about that Aaron Taylor Johnson, along with Henry Cavill, have been the front runners to possibly play the next James Bond. And I have to tell you, I'm not sure how I feel about it. I know that Henry Cavill is kind of the fan favorite, and I think he would be a good Bond. And in actuality, I think Aaron Taylor Johnson would be a good Bond as well. Now, do you remember when all the different Bonds have changed over time? I was not old enough to remember when Roger Moore took over for Sean Connery. When I was old enough to appreciate James Bond, I think it was when A View to a Kill came out, and that was right towards the end of Roger Moore's run as James Bond. And then shortly after that, that's when Timothy Dalton took over as James Bond. And to me, Timothy Dalton was a great James Bond. I enjoyed him a lot in The Living Daylights, and then also in License to Kill. But what I really did appreciate, though, was the difference of the style of acting that he had. He brought a seriousness to it. Timothy Dalton did. Roger Moore was made a lot of jokes. It was very campy with how it went, but there was still a lot of action, great music. So I mean, most of those movies were really good. And then as I got older, that's when I began to realize, hey, there were these Sean Connery movies as well. But I remember, so when Timothy Dalton came along, but then I also remember when Pierce Brosnan came along after that, and that I was very excited about because I liked Pierce Brosnan, and I thought he was really good, and because I really enjoyed him in Remington Steele, and he just looked the part. I mean, you couldn't have found somebody that looked to be a better James Bond than Pierce Brosnan. He just had the look, the style. He carried himself so well with it. So what a great choice he was. And then came a blonde James Bond. And I remember how upset a lot of people were about that. But I really didn't know really what to think about the blonde James Bond. And of course, we're talking about Daniel Craig. I was not very familiar with Daniel Craig's work, and so I was so curious about how he was going to be as Bond. And I was determined, well, I'm going to give this guy a chance. And when I went and saw Casino Royale, it blew me away. I mean, that movie was like amazing. Not only did I think, well, this is my favorite James Bond movie, it was like one of my favorite movies like ever. So I was pretty amazed by that. So of course Daniel Craig was a great James Bond. He's going to be a really hard act to follow. But here we have two frontrunners. So who do you think? Who do you think would be a good James Bond? Aaron Taylor Johnson? Henry Cavill? Or do you have some other options out there? Now, I've seen some people even make mention of, well, I think that Pierce Brosnan should come back and play him one more time just to tide us over till the next actor is picked. That could be interesting. Roger Moore, I mean, when he was in A View to a Kill, he was fairly old, and so I think Pierce Brosnan could actually pull it off. But that would be, I think that would be a choice way out, that probably isn't even being considered. But so yeah, who do you think out of these two actors might just be the next James Bond? And what would you expect to see in the next James Bond? So here's what worries me. Actually, I'll start with Henry Cavill. And this doesn't worry me. This, to me, would be reassuring. I feel like Henry Cavill would probably stay true. He would stay true to the character. And he would make sure that all the different styles and the way that Bond has been through history, I think he would make sure that those things stay in place. But I would be a little more concerned about Aaron Taylor Johnson changing it up, and him not trying to make sure that Bond's style stayed true to the character. I think he'd be willing to give a lot of ground that most of us Bond fans don't want to see given. So that's how I feel about it. But I figured this might be a nice little video, little relaxing conversation here that we could have about who's going to be the new James Bond, and something for you to think about. Maybe you're watching this right before bed. I don't know. We're ready to take a nap. But hopefully this was a little bit relaxing, something to ponder, think about. Please put in some comments. Please think about subscribing and supporting the channel. And yeah, well, I guess we'll see you in the next one. All right, bye.